Welcome to the Becoming Aware podcast, where I, Genevieve Faulkner, share what I'm becoming aware of. Hello and welcome to the Becoming Aware podcast. My name is Genevieve Faulkner, your host, and if you're watching this on YouTube, hi. So I thought today I would talk about creating your life from the space of you. So in a sense, like knowing yourself, knowing the space that you are, so that you can actually create a reality that really works for you. Now, a lot of, people that I've worked with, sometimes they don't know the difference between them and their environment. And there's a reason for that. There's actually a number of different reasons. So I wanted to kind of talk about that to hopefully bring some awareness to you guys and assist you to kind of look at maybe what you need to pay more attention to in order to have more ease with getting a sense of yourself and being able to create from that space. So one of the first things that creates kind of like this distortion of not really knowing us and knowing our own space is where we've got, healing capacities. And sometimes those healing capacities are not ones that we're using in this lifetime consciously. So we can have all sorts of lifetimes where we've been, all sorts of different kinds of healers. And those lifetimes can be causing us to unconsciously still be healing people based upon, the contracts, the oaths, the vows, the commitments we made in those lifetimes. And these people could be people in your life, or these people could be people that you've never met before in this lifetime, but your energy is needing to be connected to theirs in a way that allows them to kind of receive what they're needing to receive from you. And perhaps if you're an empath, so you can take what it is that you need to take from them in order for them to heal, right? So that creates this weird kind of place where we can have all sorts of different energies with us. And this can be something that, if it's another lifetime, you may have grown up your entire life having these other people's issues, having these other people's energies kind of like entangled and enmeshed with your own energy, and assume that energy is yours. Even assume that is actually like your personality, when actually it's you trying to heal somebody unconsciously, right? So one of the things that can help in 30 healing sessions is a download that we can do to actually show you the difference between you and your environment. And that's part of what shifts and changes things. But sometimes there needs to be a kind of dissection with regards to why you're still using those capacities unconsciously, or releasing the oaths and the vows and the contracts and the obligations from those other lifetimes. Sometimes when you're using those unconscious, those capacities unconsciously, it's simply because you're not acknowledging them, right? So acknowledgement is so key to having your own space, to having your own creative energy, to being able to change something. Like it's part of what allows us to be magic, to be everything that we are. Without acknowledgement, it just kind of, stays beneath the surface, and then we don't have access to that energy, right? So when you acknowledge that you have healing capacities and start to get curious with regards to what they are and how you can use them, you will stop using them in a way that's, not creating greater for you. Now, we can also have something playing out with regards to that unconscious healing pattern with people in our life that we've grown up with. So for those of us that perhaps had experiences where our caregivers at a young age were in some sort of crisis, perhaps they were going through some sort of depression, perhaps they had some sort of trauma that they were trying to deal with while taking care of children. As a child, that can be a little scary because you're dependent on that caregiver, right? And if they're kind of disassociated or depressed or not really wanting to be in their life, and you're energetically tapping into them for safety, for security, for all of your physical needs to be met, then it can create a sense of powerlessness if you're not being the power of you. And little kids are so powerful. And they have all sorts of capacities. And so what we can do as children is to begin to think that, I know, I'm going to heal the people around me. so that I get my needs met, right? So it's a part of that codependent type programming that occurs because that's what's required sometimes for the child to get through childhood, right? They need to keep their parents functional enough to be okay, right? But we tend to move into adulthood and not always realize that what we've done in childhood, we're still playing out in some way, shape, or form. And so we can still be, even though now as an adult, you're not dependent on them for survival, or you're not dependent on them for all the things that you were, you can still be trying to heal them based upon the programs you had as a child where you thought, where it was survival, right? So sometimes there's kind of like this requirement of your subconscious catching up to where you are now and it fully integrating that so that you let go of the places and spaces where you're trying to heal people in your life, your family members, your parents, in a way that's perhaps causing you to not know the difference between them and you. Because when you've got that playing out unconsciously, you won't, again, just like with people that perhaps you don't know in this lifetime, you're going to think that that energy is you. You're going to feel that energy, but you're just going to think it's part of your personality. And it may not be, right? And so when all of that's playing out, that's part of what ends up influencing your physical manifestations, because you assume that energy is you. You create your reality to mirror the energy of what it is that you think you are. So the clearer you can get with regards to what it is that you're trying to heal for people and let go of the places and spaces where you're doing that unconsciously from an outdated perspective, or from a place where it's actually not contributing something. Because here's the thing, when you've got healing capacities and you can heal someone, like you can transmute energy, if they're actually willing to receive that healing, there can be such a joy, it can add energy to your system, right? It's energizing, it's joyful, it's like, it just creates more living. A lot of the times when we kind of create those kinds of ways of functioning in childhood, we're trying to heal people that don't fully receive or aren't fully aware of what it is that we're trying to do for them. And when we do that from that place, and perhaps they're not willing to receive that change, or they're not aware of the change that you're trying to create for them, that's not going to be energizing for you. That's going to be draining your energy. It's going to be heavy. It's going to create more stagnation and stuckness instead of light, expansive space and the ability to move forward with ease. And so this is why it's important to kind of maybe check in with yourself and just ask yourself if you're kind of doing any of this based upon small programming. One of the other reasons why we sometimes unconsciously try and heal people is because we've got some sort of possibility that they don't have. And it might be something that would bring you lots of joy, lots of excitement, lots of vibrancy. But if you are surrounded by people that are unhappy and perhaps in misery and suffering, you can feel like it's wrong to choose what it is that you have the capacity to choose. Plus, people that are stuck in misery and suffering and pain, sometimes they've suppressed so much, right, in order to get to that place. And when they perceive somebody has a different possibility, or you choose that and you start to be happy and vibrant and full of energy, all of that suppressed stuff can get directed at you. And to someone's subconscious, that can be perceived as a threat to the system, right? So the defense mechanism that gets created is, okay, I won't choose the possibilities I can choose because I don't want everybody around me to attack me or hate me. So here's the thing to help yourself if something like that is occurring for you. One of the things that you can do, what people will do when they've got that going on is then they'll go, I know, I will unconsciously heal this person, so then their life will get better too, and then I can choose the joyful thing because they won't hate me anymore because they'll be happy as well, right? It doesn't work like that. When you try to heal somebody that isn't ready for the healing, they're not ready for the growth, they're just going to resist it. they're going to think that you're taking away their free will, and they're going to fight against the healing, and that weighs you down again, right? So then you're sitting in that energy, thinking that energy is you because you're not recognizing what it is that you're doing, okay? So one of the things that you can do to help yourself in that situation is start to practice acknowledging people from the space of their being, meaning that you acknowledge the energy that they are beyond the personality that they've chosen in this lifetime. Because all of the, lives that people are living, they're living those lives because their beings have chosen it. And there's all sorts of things that we come here for. Like, people have different reasons for choosing to incarnate at different times and with different coding. And that's based upon the experiences that they want to have, the lessons they want to perhaps learn, like the things they want to master, or the change they want to create. And so not everybody's journey is the same. And when you're trying to heal people from the place of just seeing the personality that they have and just seeing the identity that they have in this lifetime, you're perhaps cheapening them, taking away the pleasure of the experience they need to have the growth that they want to have, the way in which they want to have it, right? So their being has set something up. They're currently in the experience they need to experience, because when they come out the other side, they're going to integrate so much and recognize so much about themselves. But if you're trying to force them to change by healing them and not respecting the free agency, the free will of the being that they are, then, while you think that you're contributing, you're actually doing a disservice to them. So when you get into the practice of acknowledging their being and recognize that they chose the reality that they've chosen, and there's a reason, like there is an intelligence in that perhaps you don't fully understand from the perspective that you have, but trust that they, have their own back through the dimensions, like from some expanded space, they have their own back in this. Then you don't need to try and fix and heal anyone. You can respect the journey that people need to have in order to grow. And that will allow you to choose what you want to choose and know that you're not doing anything wrong if you're choosing lightness and expansive space, when other people are suffering. That may be just your journey, right? Just your being put in place something that allowed that possibility to come in. So you could choose it at a certain time. So, there is no wrongness in that. Not everyone will have chosen that same thing. So now there is a whole nother kind of reason why people sometimes confuse their energy with other people's. And part of that is, it's the space that we occupy. Now, people that are trained in certain methods, that do a lot of meditation and whatnot, will know how to kind of expand and be a lot of space. People who recognize that they are infinite beings, will function from a different expanded space to most people. Most people on this planet have a certain amount of space that they occupy, and that's based upon a number of different things, but basically the programs that they have within their subconscious and what they're willing to acknowledge about themselves. Most people are not willing to acknowledge how big their beings actually are. And so wherever you are in the world, people will be occupying the same space as you, dependent on how close they are, right? Now, if you've been around people your whole life that have functioned at a certain kind of amount of space, and you haven't done much meditation, or you don't realize that you have the ability to occupy all space, then you can get into this kind of mentality, I guess, of restricting your space for a reason as well. And some of the reasons, if you've gone through any kind of traumatic experience, sometimes that can be a something that occurs as an aftermath where we kind of contract our energy down. But the more contracted you are, the more you become the effect of everything around you, right? Because all of that energy becomes bigger than you instead of you being bigger than it. So with this kind of like occupying the same space as others, I had someone last week say to me that, you know, they'd just gone out of the country and they'd come back and they'd had like this amazing kind of like different experience, this lightness, you know, lots of joy and whatnot while they were traveling. And then they came back and everything kind of felt the same as it used to. And they didn't want to lose that feeling of the lightness and the joy and the expansiveness and go back to the same reality. When you have that kind of experience, the experience that you're having is when you're outside of your normal zone, you're actually sometimes able a little bit more to connect to the energy of your being, right? When you come back and you're in the same life again, you're occupying the space of everybody around you again, right? And they may have all sorts of emotional energy or stuckness or stagnation that, again, you assume is you. And so you go back into kind of like blending with that energy and not acknowledging that you are that lightness, you are that expansiveness, you are that space. So just being in question about like, how much space is everyone around me occupying? What is the things that people around me are feeling? Like, what's the main kind of vibration in the area that I am? And acknowledging that, because just because you're in an area doesn't mean you have to be like assimilate to the energy of the area. When you acknowledge the energy, and sometimes it can be helpful to actually just, you know, make a commitment to go to other places. It doesn't have to be overseas, but like going to other places just so that you can get a sense of the different energy in different places, so that you know that that's something that you're perceiving and it's not you, right? The more you can acknowledge that it's not you, the more you can tap into your source energy and create your reality from that space. But this is also very important with people that you are in relationship with, because we can have this, like, we are more prone to assimilate or to confuse our energy with people that we've grown up with or people that we're in relationship with, in my opinion, right? So if you've got people, family members that are living close to you, it might be that you're picking up on their brainwave frequencies. You might be feeling their feelings. You might be picking up on their stress. You might be, you know, believing all sorts of things based upon the projections that they have. So it's very much important to ask yourself also, not just, you know, what's part of my environment, what am I aware of here, but also like, what's the reality of the main people in my life? Okay, all of those energies I'm now aware of, and I'm consciously recognizing that that's their stuff. So who am I beyond all of that, right? Asking that question and starting to connect to yourself and asking, you know, what energy you embody beyond all of that will allow that energy to move through you instead of getting stuck and kind of like glumping in your world. Allowing yourself to also, you know, practice embodying more space. So allowing yourself to expand out instead of, you know, maybe you can have kind of like these definitions based upon the culture that you grew up, where perhaps you've decided you are, you know, because you're living in Australia, for example, you know, you might be embodying the energy of Australia, but not necessarily overseas. So practicing expanding out and actually being bigger than everybody on this planet, embodying the energy of the universe, can contribute to you having that lightness of space and not getting weighed down by everybody else's stuff. So that can be really helpful. Yeah. And the last thing is really, you know, for some of us that have grown up as people pleasers or entrained into certain roles within family dynamics, sometimes we can have this mindset or belief systems around not being entitled to space. And when you've got that kind of thing going on, you're going to be taking on the environment and everybody else's energy dynamically. Like, you are going to think all of that is you. And that's because you're not entitled to space. So therefore your energy gets almost like inverted inwards, so that it's not part of the world. You're not transmitting any frequency because you're not entitled to it. You're just having to deal with the energy that's coming your way from everybody else transmitting their frequencies. And so giving yourself permission to occupy space, to embody space, to be space. You're entitled to space, right? You as a being are entitled to space. You're entitled to be here. You're entitled to have a body. You're entitled to create your reality on this planet. So acknowledging that to yourself can assist you to begin to have more ease being in the world and being in your environment, and not being the effect of everything that perhaps you're perceiving or assuming is you based upon the fact that you haven't been entitled to that space. So for some of you, it can be really good to just practice occupying space, and that might be occupying the room that you're in, allowing yourself to embody that room, allowing yourself to embody the space beyond it, but also looking at what kind of space you can embody to, just have that sense of safety within yourself, right? Acknowledging that you're entitled to it. There's some of you might actually, benefit from more kind of like releasing of different belief systems related to that, because if you do have the beliefs that you're not entitled to space, or if you have had a lot of entrainment into people-pleasing type behaviors, there can be all sorts of belief systems that can create almost like this locking out of your energy. And so we can break down those walls with healing sessions to allow you to start to be able to transmit more energy into your environment, so that you become part of the environment and not be the effect of the environment, right? When you're willing to actually embody space and be entitled to space, you can begin to be something that may be able to influence the environment that you're in, right? So you can change the energy of the room. You can change the energy, perhaps, of the people around you, bringing that energy up into like a lighter frequency by allowing yourself to be part of the space. But that's from the place of not thinking that you have to shift and change anybody else, but just giving yourself permission to exist on this planet and to be part of, the consciousness of oneness, right? So the last thing that I will just talk about here is also, when we've got like any resistance to being alone, that can be something that can create a little bit of a confusion with our energy also, because when we're in resistance to being alone, we will energetically keep people with us so that we feel safe and secure. And we'll do that by, using our thoughts, thinking about people, or it can also be kind of like courting ourselves to a lot of people to make sure that we're not alone. And that also creates you possibly getting confused with their energy, and not having that purity of energy that allows you to create the reality that you would like to create. So looking at the fears of being alone, like what happens if you are alone? One of the things that I discovered on my journey of doing a lot of digging work with theta healing was that the aloneness that people are afraid of, like, it's an illusion. If you allow yourself to go into those voids, you actually realize that you're in the void, right? So you're never alone because you've always got you. And when you've always got you, you've got that connection with the universe. Like, it's through not resisting it that actually you begin to realize how connected you are to everything. So when you recognize that you are part of oneness, there is no resistance to being alone. But when you are in resistance to it, you'll hold on to everybody around you and not allow yourself to have space to actually embody you and to create a different reality for yourself because of those fears. I hope that makes sense. I know it can seem a little bit confusing. But if you have any questions, guys, you're more than welcome to leave comments for me and I'll do my best to answer them. That's kind of all I wanted to say about that today. I do have, for those of you that haven't checked that out, I do have a little free course about manifesting, creating the, I think it's called Creating Everything That You Desire. The keys to creating everything that you desire, which you can check out via the link. I'll leave a little link connected to this episode so that you can find that if you want to. it kind of just expands on getting really clear about what is you and what you really desire, because, you know, all of this ties into being able to create your reality. It's very hard to create a reality that works for you if you're not clear about who you are and what you desire. And when you're not acknowledging your awareness of the world around you, you're going to get confused with everybody else's points of view. So that does help people to kind of set themselves free of that and get clear about where they're headed and what they want to create. So you can check that out. And yeah, as always, like if there's something that you would like me to do a video on, just let me know. And also I'm going to start doing the live theta healing videos again. So if there is any thing that you would like me to do a healing, you know, some healing downloads around, feel free to leave comments related to that also. Thank you for listening, guys. I'm very grateful for those of you that took the time. And until next time, have a great weekend. Bye.